Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Some friendly faces. And others, we would like to start. Very pleased to be here. My name is Dadi Gertler. I'm the Executive Director of Innovation and Technology Partnerships at the INCD. INCD is the governmental agency responsible for the civilian market in Israel regarding cybersecurity resilience. So our goal, our mission is to make sure that the organizations, companies, ministries in Israel are safe and secured in cybersecurity. And for that, we have defined different kind of perspectives how we see the Israeli market. Again, only civil market. We are not dealing with the defense market. And doing that, we first prioritize critical infrastructure. Here it's defined national infrastructure. National infrastructure, it's a bit wider scope than critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure defined by the Israeli law according to some measures, and it is there is a specific committee in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, that once a year taking a deep look into the list of organizations. There are only about, I would say, less than 50 organizations in Israel defined as critical. And for those organizations, we give a very special, like a VIP treatment, helping them doing the best they can to protect themselves because they are critical to the business continuity of the Israeli civilians. And from that very specific definition, very defined group of critical infrastructure organizations. By the way, most of them are from the energy sector, from transportation sector, from other sectors which are very critical to the business continuity of the Israeli market and state of Israel. There are other definitions we define, and it's not by law. We have defined another list, another group of some hundreds of organizations. They are not critical, but they are essential. They are still essential to the Israeli market. And the essential group and the critical group are all together. We treat them as a national infrastructure. Doing that, we take some different kind of approach. One of them is innovation. In order to be resilient, it's not enough to take care about cybersecurity or information security. You have to be innovative enough to be resilient. So in this, for this specific subject, I would very happy to call the panelists. As being a representative of really multinational, one of the biggest telecom providers in the world, definitely in Europe and the US. As a telecom provider, you usually providing services to critical infrastructure, but not just to critical infrastructure, to everybody. You see a lot of traffic going through the network. How do you see the threats from your point of view?
All right. So first of all, hi, and we'll start with a short introduction. So Alon, for the past 5 years, I'm running the cyber innovation for Deutsche Telekom, for the corporation, based here in Israel with a group of employees or team members from San Francisco to Singapore and South Korea. And as for your question about how I see the threats, In my opinion, we've seen since COVID, to be honest, and moving forward. I know COVID seems like a long, long time ago, but we've seen more of a trend of going to remote work, which means a lot more of a tech surface. Then it means that we have more options or more ways to infiltrate the organization, which is being, let's say, manipulated or used or leveraged by APTs at the moment, which is cyber groups that are being backed or funded by state actors. So we see it with several states that everybody knows who they are, let's say it like this. And they're trying to use this weakest link in order to bring, well, issues or bring malicious content into the network. And we've seen it with several other telcos, specifically in the States, but not only, which means that it causes an issue for us because as the network provider, we must be, well, accountable for everything protection. So this is the first thing, APTs. The second thing, I'll say AI. A lot of the critical infrastructure, unfortunately, are still very traditional. So digital transformation started only in the past 4 or 5 years, which means that threats that we already encountered and took care of about 20 years ago, like email security or even network security in the very basic stages, are now being treated as new vulnerabilities for these traditional industries. And the third thing I'll say is, again, as always, the human link. Doesn't matter how many things you have in place, how many solutions you'll have in automation and so on. Once someone, one person, is being social engineered into giving their own password or access to the network, you can shut down complete power or water supply or any critical infrastructure, which causes a lot of issues.
Very much, Alon. Not many of you probably know, but if I may, Deutsche Telekom invest in Israel for at least 10 years, quite
almost 30.
They are the major, the first investor in the Ben Gurion University research center, cybersecurity research center. One of the definitely successful in Israel, and thank you for that. I think the progress done is amazing, and the contribution, not just to the Israeli cybersecurity, but the world cybersecurity is absolutely worth any warm words. And please continue with that. We're talking about the weakest link, the penetrating networks. And of course, we are talking here about critical networks. Lior, can you share with us your point about how to defend critical networks and preventing any kind of malicious intervention?
Sure, Dadi. Thank you, and thank you everybody for joining. My name is Lior Frenkel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Waterfall Security. We're an industrial cybersecurity company based out of Israel and helping many countries to defend their critical infrastructure against remote cyber attacks. I'm also the chairman of the Israeli Cyber Forum, which is part of the High Tech Association. And just leaning back to your previous question, the Cyber Forum is running an annual cyber survey in the industry year after year in a part of a big joint activity we have with the INCD, and we see, especially in the last 12 months, a spike in the attacks on the industrial vertical in Israel, the industry that manufactures and all of that. And these are not theoretical or small types of attacks. These are attacks that they have reported, that they have, that they know that they were a target as an Israeli cyber company, as an Israeli industrial company. So the risk is growing and the threat is growing, and we need to do much more to defend our manufacturing vertical, because that's what keeps everything up and running, from the lights to transportation to manufacturing to food to water in our pipes. Anybody who knows Waterfall or me knows that the answer to how to better protect your network from a cyber attack is not having it on the network. So that's the basic assumption, and this is why Waterfall was founded. And the reality is keep everything you can off the grid and defend very strongly what you cannot work without connecting it. So there's no one answer, but the philosophy should be like that. In the IT world, in the enterprise security world, everything is connected. There's no alternative. You take those risks, you back up everything, and you use that backup if something happens. In the industrial world, you don't have the privilege. You can't back up your networks. You can't back up the physical processes, the machines, and so everything that's critical to your business or is part of a critical activity, which is a national critical infrastructure, should be off the grid, or it will be attacked.
Talking about basically the same subject, asking Ofer, you have a specific method of network segmentation. How would that assist as a relatively new idea for critical infrastructure? How would that assist to protect critical infrastructure organizations?
Yeah, so first, thanks, and happy to be here. I'm Ofer. I'm running the enterprise security group in Akamai. And Akamai Israel. In Israel we have about 700 people in the Akamai different divisions. And the enterprise security group is the one that is doing the zero trust and segmentation products, which are usually essential when you look at the critical infrastructure or critical assets in an infrastructure. So one of the basic things that we need to assume is that any network will be breached. It becomes simpler and simpler, faster than ever before with AI technology that doesn't usually use different attack vectors, but use them all at once in much faster way than a good hacker. So the network will be breached, and now the question is whether your critical assets that provides the heart of the critical infrastructure will be accessed immediately once the breach will happen. And this is all about segmentation that traditional firewalls, I came from Check Point like Jony here, so traditional firewalls cannot really protect with granularity that allows you to protect critical assets in the network. And what started as realization by financial banks that they must protect their SWIFT, their PCI, their ATMs, all their critical lights on systems should also be true to water supply, to electricity, to telcos that becomes critical infrastructure, etc. So the whole idea about critical infrastructure is not to treat all of it the same as Waterfall is doing, protecting, disconnecting essential part of the network from the wild internet. Segmentation does the same, but in a lighter way. So segmentation basically, or microsegmentation basically allows you to segment specific applications, specific servers, and basically disconnect them from the network besides the connections that are trusted. So you eliminate 98, 99% of the attack surface, and the likelihood of a breach, and we see it. We have 1,000 employees, 1,000 customers today, and we see that the likelihood of them being breached is close to zero once they do the segmentation, and that's the proof that critical infrastructure in these different countries should follow that. The absurd is that the ones that has it usually are the banks and the civilian infrastructures, and not the government-controlled critical infrastructure, and that's another question. Why is that?
Yeah, we will get back to that question, and later on, one of the reasons, is that the critical infrastructure organizations are very traditional by nature, and they are really hate taking risks and doing different kind of network manipulations. At least in nowadays, when everybody they have to connect to cloud services. Definitely, if they would like to have better performance and consume AI services over cloud, they have to connect something to the network, and that's why it's so important. And securing the going out to the cloud, Jony, what is your perspective, the checkpoints perspective and roadmap for that?
Well, that's a very good topic. Cloud, we all know that in the regular world, cloud is not, it's no longer an issue, it's a fact. We have seen in the manufacturing, and I connect manufacturing because of the OT component. So we see in the manufacturing, they are much more flexible than critical infrastructure or nationwide protections. But we still see also in manufacturing, they are very reluctant. They say, if it works, I don't want to push it to go to the cloud. And then you have the reality. The reality means that also nationwide, in some level critical infrastructure, but nationwide and manufacturing, they do connect to the cloud. They don't ask, not the IT people, not the CISO, they don't ask. So before that, I just forgot to mention, Jony Fischbein, 23 years in Checkpoint. Before that, Bank Leumi, Bank Discount. Those that do not know what is Y2K, I will tell you later, okay? That was my first project after the military, when I built the SOC in Bank Leumi, ages ago. Today, field CISO globally, after I was the CISO of Checkpoint. So I imagine how is to protect those that build the supply chain for the products that will protect our customers. And going back to manufacturing and OT, also there is a connection to healthcare, okay? And especially countries that are under conflict, they will suffer multiple times much more significant attacks than regular countries that are perceived as friendly. Not only Israel, Middle East conflict, also Russia, Ukraine. You see also Taiwan, China, Singapore. You see the situation. By the way, Venezuela is currently under attack. I'm not saying that we are attacking, but you need to understand that we have several events like this ones in China, and the Chinese don't attack the Chinese, okay? They say someone else is attacking them, okay? So everyone is attacking everyone, okay? Now, I have spoke a lot with manufacturing and OT. I say, look, if something bad didn't happen to me, if it's not broken, let's not touch it, okay? But we understand that factories, you know, Honeywell, Siemens, ABB, all of these big names, ThyssenKrupp, when they deliver a new factory, they are working on something called Industry 4.0, which the OT floor production manager, they want telemetry. They want to manage the factory from these little devices, and that will mean that they will have to connect. So if you ask any nationwide protection of critical infrastructure, what are the biggest concerns? They usually tell me discovery, visibility. There is something called shadow OT, so they do not know what they do not know, so they cannot protect it.
Absolutely, it's a huge issue. By the way, Alon was mentioning before the COVID pandemic, COVID times. During COVID, there was a huge claim in cyber attacks from different reasons. Again, I think one of the sectors, you have mentioned the healthcare sector, one of the sectors which is in some countries critical, in Israel it's called, defined as essential. I think during COVID there was a huge rise in attacking hospitals or medical centers in the world, mainly in the Western world. And that's, something that was never done before almost. Also in Israel we saw some cases of hospitals being attacked before the war and during the last war by different kind of groups, different kind of motivations. So different kind of crises in the world, it was mentioned here, geopolitical or others, directly affect the way or the risk to critical infrastructure. And that's something that we have to take into consideration when preparing ourselves. Ofer, as again, similar to Alon, entity is a huge telecom infrastructure, telecom provider, data provider from Japan and in the world in general. How entity is helping Japan to protect itself and all the other customers?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, just to introduce myself, Asaf, I'm Director of Business Development for Entity Innovation Lab in Israel. Maybe just 2 sentences about Entity, as I'm not sure that everyone know us. Entity is a Japanese conglomerate, works globally. It's a technology and business solution provider, Fortune 100 company, over 350,000 employees, 1,000 subsidiaries. Quite an easy organization to manage, specifically for cyber issues. And eventually, Entity provides IT services and consultancy to Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies across the globe. Specifically in Japan, Entity is also the biggest telecommunication company. It's half of the market, 90 million customers as a carrier. So quite a big business. Specifically for what you mentioned, specifically in Japan, Entity as the #1 system integrator is responsible many times to safeguard Japanese infrastructure and also for our customers around the globe. Entity is running and managing dozens and dozens of SOCs in Japan internally for our use and also for our customers. On top of that, Entity has different services from MSP to MSSP, from white hackers services to others. Everything together, eventually, we try to provide the best practices to our customers. Entity also is responsible for the networking and cybersecurity aspects of very high-level interest events like the Tour de France, IndyCar in the US, and of course the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games in Japan in 2021. And back then they mentioned that during the Olympic Games, just a few weeks period of time, they identified around 450 million cyber attacks. Some of them, of course, by group of hackers, some of them probably, we can assume by nation state players. So super complex. I think it was maybe a world record, the number that I mentioned. And with all that I mentioned, I think eventually Entity is trying to transform from mere prevention to resilient infrastructure. And this is what eventually we try to offer Entity Group to our customers.
Fantastic, and that's really, we have here a few cases of global players investing in the Israeli ecosystem, promoting innovation, building innovation hubs, and we definitely would like to see more of that. And in critical infrastructure, or national, in general, national challenges, innovation is a crucial, critical point. It's very hard to approach an energy provider, a power plant, and say, hey, we would like to do some cybersecurity tests. Let's shut some turbines for 2 weeks. Will not happen, cannot be done. And for that, the government of Israel is investing quite a lot of budget, of efforts in building innovation labs. Some or most of our innovation labs are located in Be'er Sheva. And in these labs, we have kind of similar to like a digital twin, but even more, plus, where you can practice, you can research, you can explore different kind of vulnerabilities or different kind of threats and malware in different kind of attack scenarios, but on a very highly simulated environment without risking the real critical infrastructure of a country, without taking this risk, and of course being able to do any kind of manipulation you would like. Saying that, the question back to the panel is how do you see Jony, how do you see investing in innovation hubs or innovation labs by major vendors like Checkpoint?
Well, it's innovation is usually it's a good question. It's tricky. I don't know if you know, like the biggest vertical that pay for ransomware attacks in the last year, you will be surprised, is manufacturing. And if you manage to attack a manufacturing plant like Jaguar Land Rover that for 2 months didn't deliver a single car, this was huge. Okay, and the systems are pretty much OT. Even if they're connected to IT, at the end of the day, cars are not delivered. So nobody cares if it's the OT, IT. At the end of the day, it's a huge financial impact. So in all of that, you ask about innovation. So in the news where a few months ago, Checkpoint announced that they're hiring till the end of this year, 500 developers. It's very difficult to put in a CV 3 years of experience with AI. Who has 3 years experience in AI? It's tough, but we are going there. Together with hiring people that they will doing AI, we need to teach them also to help them. We are going to build a new building in Tel Aviv near to where we are at the moment, which is a bit, it's a risk, to invest in a place that it's quite expensive. But we definitely, if you ask me, we are not building innovation hubs outside of Israel on this magnitude. Okay, so definitely we think that this is the place to keep investing. Yeah, she's looking at, probably next year we will be also here, okay? We really hope to do that. But I think this is investing for many years moving ahead. We have the attackers, we have the protectors, but again, we are very, very aware on a global scale. We used to have offices in Eastern Europe, R&D, because of tension. Obviously, we don't have them there. We are building nice R&D offices in India as well, which this is something new that we didn't used to have. Yeah, so we are checking what's going on and adapting according to what's needed.
Fantastic, sounds very good. Lior, About how do you see from, well, you have two hats here. One as a vendor, as a successful startup, well, not a startup anymore, but a very successful one, dealing a lot with critical infrastructure in the world, and the other hat as leading the high-tech, the cybersecurity forum of the high-tech association. How do you see from the government side, the regulation side, I would say, how that would help innovation in the market?
Okay, thank you, Dadi. And I have. It's harder to me to wake up in the morning and say which hat is more interesting today, which is a good problem. I think government should mainly invest in telling the market what's the right way, okay, what they are expecting. Because the private sector especially, it doesn't matter if it's the banks or if it's critical infrastructure, IT, OT, in general, the market doesn't know too much about the threat. Okay, we think there's something wrong here. We think they are. We think everybody is ex-time and they know everything. But at the end, most of the people in most of the industries, in most of the security positions, don't really know what the heavy lifting bad guys know how to do and what to do. And the government does, because it's a government play. So telling the market, and it can be regulation, it can be guidelines, it can be, there's a spectrum of how to tell it. Okay, but to show the market the right way, guys, this is what you need to do, and in places where it's possible, also why, will provide, the market will provide our customers with the understanding where they should put their efforts in, what they're doing good and what they're not doing good enough, and help us as vendors invest in what the market will need and come and buy. So I think that's, and I'm saying that I think that what the government needs to do, because I think they're not doing a good job in that. Some of them are trying, but because of the disconnect between government and private sector, it just doesn't work, and some of them don't think it's their position, and I think it's something that they need to rethink.
Well, thank you very much. It was enlightening, and definitely communication and collaboration between public sector and private sector is a key success factor for any defense or innovation, and altogether, definitely in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a global issue. It's not something which is typical to Israel specifically, outside of some typical issues in the last 2 years. But cyber definitely requires collaboration and communication as much as possible, clear as possible. And if regulation is required in some places, it does require. So it should be done. Ofer, Akamai is also very global and huge organization, vendor, that has in Israel quite respectable R&D center. How do you, is it something that is part of the policy of global players to build here in Israel R&D centers, or just part of the evolution of purchasing or buying, acquiring Israeli successful startups?
Yeah, so Akamai is indeed global. About, I think, Akamai managed today about a third of the internet traffic in the world. So it's really a company with a very large footprint globally. and it looks constantly to innovation. Security is today more than half of the business of Akamai. And the growth in Israel is mainly around security with acquisitions. So it started with acquisition of non-security companies, but in the past 4 years, Akamai acquired 3 companies. One of them was a company that I worked in, Gardico. But since then, we acquired 2 API security companies, Neosec and No Name. And it's part of the recognition that Israel is the innovation center, that this is a place to get new technologies. It's also a place that you can get talent quite easily compared to other locations. So Akamai security today is mainly Tel Aviv. Also, we have India and US and a little bit Spain as evolving center, but predominantly it's in Israel. And what I think we need to leverage more is the cooperation, to leverage the fact that you have 700 experts in cybersecurity in Israel, and to work more with the government, as you started to say, and was mentioned by Lior, is to collaborate. We see threat feed probably better than anybody else in the industry. We can collaborate on that. We do it in some places. We have best practices that we share with on the financial services front, FS ISEC forums, if you know. So we can do the same with the government. I think the dialogue between the vendors and the government could benefit both sides. We will know what's the concerns of you, and you will hear the latest and greatest from a vendor that has both local presence but also global view.
Thank you for that. And Alon, a bit of a similar question, as you yourself dealing with innovation for quite a time, and does global player as Deutsche Telekom sees the Israeli market as a potential for innovation and creativity?
All right, so I'll start by saying that 3 weeks ago, our global CEO with most of the board of management members and so on were in Israel. The first one to come after the war has ended, and they actually were supporting Israel for the whole last 2 years, including being the first Fortune 500 company to support Israel, including assisting us with anything needed, both to the team and, of course, to the network side, let's say. And one thing that my CEO said when he was here is that Israeli resilience is the best way or best example on how innovation can actually assist with the threats, with the issues. And this is one of the reasons that Deutsche Telekom is investing so much in Israel, because they know that most of the things that are happening here are a result of the need that we have. It's not just another regulation or anything like this. It's something that we actually experience on a day-to-day basis. And this is something that differentiates Israel a little bit from the rest, because most of us, or most of the companies, are coming from either the military or from different, let's say, entities, sorry, about taking the threats, understanding what's going on, what is missing, and then they go out, they form relationships that they wouldn't have unless they were in the military, and then they start a startup together to solve these issues. Then what they solve, they actually get a POC or test site with the innovation lab of NCD or with anything that is related to critical infrastructure here in Israel, do it very quickly, and from there go out to the world. We always refer to Israel as the country test site, basically, because it's super easy to start and check innovation here. So once we have a need or a gap or anything else, we know that first thing we'll look into Israel, because if there's a new gap, most likely someone from here already thought about it and started a startup for it.
Yes, mentioning startups. By the way, do you have a guess how many cybersecurity startups are currently running in Israel? Anybody? Too much? About 500. Okay, about 500 startups, different stages, of course. Most of them are still stage, but different stages. That's fantastic number. It might be too much, as mentioned.
That's why you cannot find flights for RSA conference.
Absolutely, it's blocked. Really a lot of, and that's one of our advantages is cybersecurity, and that's when starting planning or defining the roadmap for AI, which is the new revelation. Taking the niche of AI security is one of the promised segments in the Israeli market, because we already how to do startups we know, and cyber we know quite well, probably. By the way, not just looking about the number of startups, to taking the look of investors. About 50% of the global investing in the investments in cybersecurity is going to Israeli companies in the world. Okay, about 50%, more than the US. US is about 40-something percent, 42 or 43, and the rest of the world, just do the math, almost nothing. So cybersecurity innovation is either here in Israel or in the US. And one of the things I think would like to add to that?
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to add. From conversation with CISOs, I was saying Black Hat and so on, there's a sentence that always repeats itself, that US innovates, China imitates, Europe regulates, and Israel protects, basically. And this is one of the things that we see all the time. In cybersecurity, we might not be the first one in AI, we might not be the first one in robotics space or anything else, but we will always be the first one in cybersecurity, because we always like to think as the red team and then start to protect from it.
Yeah, that's a kind of disruptive thinking. Back to NTT. One of the things that NTT have proved to all of us that it's open an AI hub and innovation hub here in Israel. That's amazing. What is the general perspective of NTT and how it defines the place it defines for innovation?
Thank you. So we established NTT Innovation Lab 4 years ago in 2021. There was a trend of Japanese corporates to open offices and hubs in Israel. There were around 100 Japanese companies operating in Israel. So NTT, of course, understand, and like the numbers that you mentioned before, by the way, in our slides, we use a bit more traditional number, like as 40% of global funding, so we can update that, but still it's super impressive. And this is, we use that internally to showcase the strength of our ecosystem when we try to promote Israeli innovation internally inside NTT, and of course with NTT's customer. So the idea when NTT decided to open its operation in Israel was exactly that. It was to connect the Israeli ecosystem, Israeli innovation, startups, more mature companies. Of course, Checkpoint and Palo Alto don't need our help because there's already strategic agreements with NTT, but early stage startups or companies that are a bit more mature This is what we try to keep our eye on, and we try to identify the trends and to share that with our colleagues in Japan and in any other place, and to promote, hopefully, strategic partnerships between both sides. On top of that, of course, we support investments of the different investment arms of NTT, and there are a few from CVC, from strategic investors in NTT, and to the more financial investors. So if we look at NTT, so in the past, maybe 15 years, NTT invested in more than a dozen of Israeli companies. In the past few years, we invested in a few, in cybersecurity, of course, in generative AI. When we invested, it was Metaverse, but also in digital healthcare and in quantum computing. By the way, in the panel before lunch, NTT invested almost 4 years ago in Classic, that Nir, the CEO, was sitting here. And also in agriculture, and basically all those investments usually are strategic investments when we believe maybe there's already some traction between NTT and the company, or we believe and our business units believe that there's a good potential to work together and to create something big between NTT and the company. Yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to do. And if there are any entrepreneurs here that are working on something or building something, we are super happy to learn about it and to see how we can help and to connect with NTT. Important to say, I mean, NTT is a key player in Japan, but it also operates globally. I'm just mentioning that for people who knows that are aware that building business in Japan can be challenging sometimes. Having said that, you need a local partner like NTT or someone else, but we also work globally, and specifically for cybersecurity, NTT have SOCs all across the globe, and the business totally global.
Amazing, thank you for that. Lior, would it be possible to reveal some maybe numbers or statistics from the latest survey? Some highlight, I would say? Maybe one highlight?
Unfortunately, I don't remember all the numbers on top of my head. We will publish the cyber report, I think, next week or later this week. So there'll be a PR about it, and the numbers will be public. But without getting into the numbers specific, so I won't make any mistakes. But the negative thing that we see in the market is a stagnation in the investment. And again, the market is the manufacturing and the industrial sector in Israel. It's not the global market or not even the global Israeli market. It's specifically this type of customers. We see a stagnation in investment in cybersecurity, coupled with the same market, the same customers reporting that they are getting hacked more. So there is this dissonance between they are telling us, hey, the risk is higher, not a theoretical risk. Okay, they are reporting more attacks on their facilities. So it's not like they're feeling more attacked or somebody else. They are reporting on themselves. They are getting breached more, but they're not investing anything more than they used to. Which means that moving forward, the situation is going to be even worse than now. We do see a few good things changing over time, but there's like more nuance than this big thing that is really apparent from the numbers of the report.
Yeah, that's a very good point that I would like to raise. Before that, Jony, Check Point is one of the leading cybersecurity vendors here in Israel with a fantastic coverage. What does Check Point see analyzing the traffic here in Israel?
So in Israel, specifically because of the last 2 years, We have seen attacks that we knew that existed, but we see them. And when we talk about this kind of nation or OT, we usually think about water company, electrical companies. But guys, the lights in Tel Aviv, the lights and the traffic lights, okay? So they're controlled by a controller, okay? I will not tell you how good or bad they are protected, but we hope they are protected. There are TV screens all over the city. Some of us saw a Palestinian flag in the first month of the war. It was because there was a default password on the system, and believe me, it was a contractor. Someone else was managing that system for the Ramat Gan municipality. And this is what we call IoT. The fact that we call them IoT, it can be critical. Okay, it can create a massive hysteria and disinformation, and you can craft a very well attack utilizing the weakest points that in some cases is IoT, because IoT is connected to the internet, and we all put a lot of investment on the electrical and water. But what about sewage systems? What about all of those renewable energy? Do we have anyone from Spain? Nobody from Spain?
Somebody from Netanya.
Someone from Netanya? I am from Netanya. Speak slowly. So 28th of April this year, I was in Spain. I have nothing to do with it. There was a complete blackout on all the Iberia Peninsula. The first claim was a cyber attack. They managed to prove till now, it can change, that this was a renewable energy problem. But every time something happens, airlines, there is a problem to book into an airline, it's a cyber attack. They need to, so the CISO for all these companies, they need to prove they are not the one to blame. But listen, who has here an electrical car? Who has here a Chinese car? Okay? Chinese cars in Israel, I don't know, maybe it's a third of the cars are Chinese, maybe electrical cars, maybe more. Is it a problem? It's a problem. Now, the fact that the IDF decided that BYD and other Chinese companies cannot enter very confidential basis, does it mean that the driver of the general, by the way, the driver of the general is also listening to the same conversations the general is in the car. So to the driver, it doesn't imply, only to the general, okay? So we need to be very careful because we are all chasing the cool tech, but it's very difficult to ask the questions. And usually we decide the decisions after we gave the car to all these officers that they were using. I don't know if you know the story with Garmin, the Air Force. Garmin, I think was in Iraq. They managed, the enemy managed to understand where are all the officers because they upload where they run with the Garmin. It was in Israel also well? Okay, so probably we shouldn't wear this stuff. But by the way, in America, they all trust America's tech. They don't allow Chinese tech, but I will not go into the bias of geopolitical, but I think it's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really I think, issues of the last 2 years, it's global, not just in Israel, is supply chain. So sometimes the attackers choose to attack not the main or the most critical infrastructure organizations because they are relatively good protected, because they are regulated, because they have budgets, and so on and so forth, but they're suppliers. And once they are jeopardizing, which their suppliers are, most of the time are relatively small or medium businesses. Coming back to what Lior was mentioning that they are having difficulties to budget all this good stuff, all the fancy cybersecurity, and then they have some weak points that the attackers are using actually. While attacking different kind or multiple supply chain companies, they damage the possibility of the big tech or the big infrastructure utilities to protect themselves. So that's a major issue, and we don't have solutions for all the problems in the world, but something that we definitely, policy-wise, technology-wise, regulation-wise, we are looking for solutions and answers how to protect better small and medium businesses, because they are supply chain of the big utilities. And I would like to thank you all, gentlemen, for taking your time in this panel. Thank you very much. Thank you all.